Hey everyone, dependency injection in programming is a design pattern which is one of the most used and have secured its place among the most popular development frameworks in almost all the languages. It is really crucial to understand dependency injection if you want to have a solid understanding of the workings of large frameworks. With this understanding comes the opportunity to write code which is bug-free and efficient. Dependency injection has its own set of advantages and drawbacks, but I think that the good parts far outweigh the bad parts. If this would not have been the case, then programmers around the world would not be using it at such a large scale. I have actually already created a video on this topic some time back, but that video was pretty basic, and even though it helped many viewers, it also served to confuse many others. So I intend to fill in the missing parts, and hopefully these set of videos will be enough to shed light on the workings of this pattern. This video will cover the concepts, so if you think you only need to understand the code, then feel free to skip to the next two videos to see code examples in C# and JavaScript. But still, I would recommend to watch this video and you might learn something new. So on that note, let's get started with the introduction of dependency injection, and after that I will demonstrate the code examples. Dependency injection is a technique where one object supplies the dependencies of another object. The dependency being supplied is usually called as a service. It can be anything like an object, a function, etc. The object which uses the service is typically called a client. So a dependency is something which can be used as a service for a client. The injection term simply means that the dependency as a service can be passed on to the client so that the client can use it. The intent behind dependency injection is to achieve separation of concerns. This can increase readability and code reuse. Also, it is a form of inversion of control. So the client delegates the responsibility of providing the dependency to external code, which initializes the client. Also, the client should not be able to call the injection code itself, because IOC or inversion of control means letting other code call you rather than insisting on doing the calling. Let's now take a look at a small flowchart of sorts to understand how dependency injection works to inject the service into the client as a dependency. There are three services over here and a client object. So ideally, the code should be able to switch the dependency which the client is using without making any change to the code, and this can be done typically using the configuration files. So the dependency injection code should be able to inject either service 1, service 2 or service 3 into the client to be used by it using the configuration files. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the good parts of dependency injection, which are the main reasons why this design pattern is so popular among so many developers. Dependency injection allows a client the flexibility of being configurable, so we can externalize a system's configuration details into configuration files, which allows the system to be reconfigured without recompilation. So whenever we need to configure the client to use a different dependency, we don't really need to make a code change and then recompile the code and then deploy it to the production server. We just need to make the aforementioned change into the configuration file, and the client will then keep on using the updated dependency which we have provided in the configuration. Dependency injection allows concurrent or independent development, which is pretty logical because different developers can work on the client and service codes. It makes it easier for faster development times because all of these modules are not really connected to each other, and because the services can be easily switched for the client to be used as a dependency. DI also decreases coupling between a class and its dependency because the code which is using the service is not hard-coded. It is a setting which can be changed from any configuration file, so it allows us the flexibility to decouple the client code from the service code. And like everything which has something good, the bad parts are also there, and for dependency injection there are quite a few. The first and most obvious one is configuration details need to be supplied by the construction code. So in most of the cases, the service is injected into the client using its constructor. So the constructor code always needs to provide the dependency for the client. This can make code difficult to read because it separates behavior from construction, and it can be hard to track the exact implementations of the service code whenever we are testing or debugging our code. This pattern also encourages to depend on a dependency injection framework because, let's be honest, this design pattern is complicated and we cannot make everything from scratch. So it is a good thing to rely on a third-party framework, but then we will have to make sure that the third-party framework which we are using is up to proper standards and is properly tested, and it should also have a good support either from the company which is developing the third-party DI injection framework or from the community which is actually using that framework. In either case, it is always a hard choice to make, but when we look at the advantages which it provides, it is kind of a necessary evil which we have to deal with. DI also forces us to create complex linkages between the classes to support service injections, which makes it hard to debug the code, which I have already told you. It could be easier for experienced developers to find their way through these couplings, but for new developers which are also new to understanding this design pattern, it can be hard to debug and test the application. So this was the basic introduction about this design pattern, and make sure to watch the next two parts about the code examples in C# and JavaScript, and you can learn how you can use this design pattern in these languages. So I hope that you will like this video, and if you do, please don't forget to place a like and also subscribe to this channel if you want to be the first to know about the new video updates. I will see you in the next one. Till then, have a great day.